Hey everyone, David here, Texas Horns Football. Let's talk about Oklahoma 34, Texas 27, Red River Shootout. I'll never call it the Red River Showdown because that sounds stupid, but let's talk about it. Drop your comments below. Let me know what your overall thoughts are on the game and where kind of, things go from here. Gives Texas 2 losses. Just 1 loss in the Big 12, though, and kind of finishing out that really tough first half of the season schedule. So overall, I think the story of this game was Texas just being totally outcoached from the first snap all the way to the last whistle on pretty much every part of the game as well, offense, defense, special teams. I think we saw that in play calling. I think we saw that in the way the Oklahoma defense was able to completely disrupt what Texas wanted to do on offense. I think that pretty much for most of the game, just kind of going through that, passing the eyeball test, Oklahoma looked pretty much in control the entire game, even though it was still a close game. I think I saw like the last 7 Red River Shootout games have been decided by 7 points or fewer. So it's always going to be a close game. That doesn't include the Big 12 championship game last year. But, we knew it was going to be a close game going in. Going back to the preview video that I published and just looking at, predictions and things like that, I said that Texas was likely going to have to score in the high 30s to win. And that's what they, ended up would have had to have done. They would have had to score at least 35 to win the game. So, I just don't think the game turned out to be what most of us thought it would be. I don't think anybody would have predicted that Oklahoma was only going to have 10 points at halftime. It's just that no one else would have predicted that Texas was only going to have 3 points at halftime. A final score of 34-27 isn't too surprising. I just think that most of us probably thought it would be a higher scoring than that. So, taking a closer look at it, looking at some of the individual situations, I think that the Oklahoma defense did exactly what the Texas defense probably was wanting to do against Jalen Hurts, and that's just get into the backfield and disrupt. Where Oklahoma did a great job of that is I think they had a scheme and a plan that confused the Texas offensive line, resulted in 9 sacks of Sam Ehlinger. A few plays, sure, we saw Sam hold the ball too long. He looked like he was pressing. He didn't look comfortable. But 9 sacks, Sam can't do it all by himself. He ended up having over 200 yards passing. I think looking back at the fact that the Texas running backs, the ones who actually train and practice running the ball, I think they had a grand total of like 10 carries between Rashad Johnson and Keontae Ingram. And when you look at that fact, I really think that overall Texas kind of abandoned the running game. Not sure why Keontae Ingram only had 2 carries. Rashawn Johnson, absolutely was the more effective, explosive running back in the game. Although Ingram had 4.5 yards per carry, but 2 carries is no sample size to judge. Rashawn Johnson did break off that long 56, 57-yard run that set up for his rushing touchdown, I believe on the very next play, if I remember right. So, that and maybe a long pass to Devin Duvernay, about a 35-yard pass, really about the only big plays the Texas offense had. Colin Johnson had some catches. He finished with about 80-something yards. And just overall, just a struggle for the Texas offense to move the ball. really had to grind for any first downs. And obviously, going into halftime with only 3 points is not the game plan or the style of game that Texas wants to play. Obviously, from an offensive stance, they want to mix the run and the pass. They want it all revolves around Sam, and when he's getting pressured, when he's getting sacked like that, it just turns out into just a grinding kind of trying to run in the mud, sort of offense, and that's just kind of the feeling that I had watching the offense. Thought it was really cool that Dicker the kicker, that Lincoln Riley tried to ice him with 3 straight timeouts, and he still actually ended up making 2 field goals, right, from over 50 yards out. He actually did kick the first one, but there was a timeout called, and then that last one, when Oklahoma was out of timeouts, he still made it. So that was actually kind of cool to see. And then from a defensive standpoint from Texas, overall, a sloppy game, sloppy tackling again, saw more guys get hurt. Brandon Jones had a big interception in the end zone. Anthony Cook came in and forced a fumble on Jalen Hurts. So, Jalen Hurts' first half, I think, was really up and down. I think the Texas defense kind of made Jalen Hurts have his worst game of the year, but he was still able to rush for 130 yards and throw 3 touchdowns to CeeDee Lamb. So I think for the most part of this first half, the Texas defense did their part in holding or at least slowing down that Oklahoma offense. And I think that was their kind of task of the day, was to figure out how to just slow the offense down. It was the Texas offense that couldn't step up and convert and get into the end zone. So, as frustrating as it was to see the missed tackles, to see, CeeDee Lamb kind of make the Texas defense look really bad on a couple of plays. Overall, I think, for most of the game, the Texas defense, just in terms of a result standpoint, did enough. Okay. And then Oklahoma obviously, kind of pulled away there at the end in terms of just getting points on the board. But obviously Texas was never out of the game. It was a 7-point game. It was 10-10. Texas tied it up 10-10 there for a while. So, Jalen Hurts is absolutely an elite quarterback. He's impossible to shut down completely, but he's vulnerable, right? He's going to make some mistakes sometimes. He's not so experienced or so out of this world that he's just going to play flawlessly against a really, really good team, on a, consistent basis. But I somewhat felt confident in the Texas defense there for a while. We saw more guys go down with injuries, though. B.J. Foster probably had his worst game maybe in his Texas career. Who knows if he was even healthy or not. It's hard to know, what these guys are really dealing with. But still, injuries are going to come up. You just have to overcome them. We can't always say, well, so-and-so was injured, Jeffrey McCulloch was out, senior captain Malcolm Roach got thrown out of the game because he got a personal foul, which everybody in the game started with a personal foul because of a scuffle before the game. So, I'm not gonna go down that route, but let me know your comments below about the overall performance. Looking at where things go from here, I think we've just seen that this Texas team this year just quite isn't there yet. They're just not quite a top 5 team. They're close. They've had 2 really close losses to 2 of the top 4 teams in the country. I think if you rank them right now in some sort of ranking, The top 4 teams right now are Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. I wouldn't rank Clemson in the top 4. Georgia, now with a loss, they're not in the top 4. So, you know, Texas is close. They're getting there and they're close. Yeah, still frustrating, but they absolutely can still win out, meet Oklahoma again in Arlington for the Big 12 championship game, just like they did last year. But they're gonna have to make some adjustments on offense, defense. We saw some big special teams mistakes, a couple of them by Devin Duvernay. You know, I think he was the one that caught the kickoff that would have gone out of bounds. And Texas just kept on starting drive after drive deep in their own territory, where it looked like Oklahoma was starting their drives at worst on their own 40. You know, some were on the 50. You know, so there was that major shift in field position. It seemed like over and over. So, you know, and going back to, you know, what Texas has from here, you know, Baylor, I don't know what they really have. But Texas has already beaten Oklahoma State and West Virginia, 2 teams that they lost to last year in the conference. So obviously they're coming out of the toughest part of the schedule, but you still can't write any of these teams or games off without question. You don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, any hopes of finishing in the top 4 in the playoff at the end of the year, I think, is gone. A 2-loss team is not going to get into the playoff. And, you know, so if you look at best case scenarios, a Big 12 championship game, you know, the opportunity to win a conference championship, and then maybe go back to the Sugar Bowl and maybe a rematch against LSU. Maybe it's a game against Alabama. Who knows? You know, LSU has to play Alabama. And then those teams have their conference championship. So absolutely still could end this season on just an amazing note. You know, who knows what adjustments are going to be made on defense or offense, but you know, if Texas does meet Oklahoma again, they're going to have to come into that game with a different game plan, with a different strategy, because like I said in the beginning, I think that's the story of this game: out-coached, out-strategized, and just out-executed. So those are my thoughts, guys. Drop your comments below. I know this video is late, but still love to hear what you think about it, and then we'll do one after the Kansas game. But always appreciate your comments, always appreciate your interaction. Definitely don't forget to subscribe, give it a like, share it out, and we'll see you next time. Welcome.